And actually, I would like to maybe dig into your explainer video, because one of the things I think is really interesting about that is the use of Remotion. Again, I don't know a lot about Remotion, but just for the people who don't know, well, maybe you can explain it, because I think it's a really interesting. For me, it's a very classically useful thing for the sort of local stuff. I mean, effectively, you can make videos in lots of different ways, but
Mhm.
being able to sort of leverage, and it's a clever way of leveraging kind of React and video locally, right? So it's well, you want to explain it because you know much better than I do, I'm sure.
Yeah, sure. I'd be glad to. How's the screen looking to you?
Perfect. What's
Perfect.
me?
Yep.
Yeah. So, um, this is so as part of the research and getting into MCP apps, trying to figure out like what makes them more useful. We've talked quite a bit about composition really mattering, and the thing I found is that AI, and we talked a little bit about this, particularly in the context of cloud code, but AI always really likes to make these big walls of text, right? And so, how can we get the AI to explain things back to us, in different modalities that might be easier for us to understand? And so, like for example, I did this here where I was sort of asking about some of these recent, tech layoffs, and then I just said, let's, please explain this to me in a video, and it uses this tool to just describe what what all was going on, right, with these with these layoffs, right, taking the wall of text up here and turning it into a 60-second explainer video, and like just putting here some animations, but also describing, there's a voiceover on it that describes what all is going on, right? Why these things are happening. And I put this together using and to test out a few different things. One is how useful that would be in the context of helping me grok information that's coming from ChatGPT and from Claude for that matter, and also to push on the idea of generative UI, like 'cause it's just generating this video on demand. I was actually very impressed by Excalidraw, which is an MCP app or it's an app that got also now manifested as an MCP app that we looked at recently. Um, and that this idea of like how can we just have something that, like, if you're just doing work, how does this help you do that work, right? As opposed to having to be the center of gravity. Right. I'm not saying let's use this app just to do, for today's work. Like, I'm trying to do research. I'm trying to understand the topic. How can I turn this into, something I can that can teach me better? Also making use of Remotion, which is something that you were just alluding to, Toby. In order to make the video, as code, right? Because usually when we're doing AI, when we think about like generative AI on the audio video front, we think about it having to create an image or create a video, right? Like what VO does or Sora does. It makes these little 8-second clips of like somebody's head just sort of turning by 45 degrees, and then like everybody cheers because that's like, hey, that's a great video. That just made it look like somebody turned their head. What I want was something that could explain. And so the idea was that stitching together a bunch of 8-second videos into something that could be long enough to explain would be both really expensive and take a very long time. And so the shortcut was, instead of saying, let's create a video per se, right? Let's create frames of video. Let's create instructions. So the idea behind Remotion is that Remotion allows you to create, basically use code, and the code then renders the video. And I don't know what we got down here for samples. No, okay. So the like if I were to say it's learn Remotion, I think, yeah. So you can start to see this. This is the kind of code that gets created, or that you need in order for Remotion to work. It's just React code, but we can
Yeah,
do.
because I mean, I think the interesting thing for me is, like, effectively it's like an animation for a website, but
Mhm.
the clever part about Remotion is that it then does all the pieces in terms of actually turning that into like a video file that you can then use and share it as a video rather than having to install everything. So this is, I mean, it's a really smart idea, right? I mean, all this cleverness people put into animations and sort of
Mhm.
and drawing on in HTML can be reused actually straight as in video.
But the thing I also wanted to show here was because we were talking about skills before. That one of the biggest advantages of Remotion, one of the reasons you hear about Remotion sort of in the tech side, is because of its skills. And so the idea is that rather than me creating, this code, right, or even me creating instructions on how to create that code, there are these skills that are then describing how to work with Remotion, which are just basically instruction files, right? And skills under the scenes are not, crazy complicated, you know. So the reason that I bring this up is that what the MCP does under the covers is basically load in these skills into context, take the text that someone passed in, and say let's create, and then uses, I think it uses Gemini, as a let's create the code that will then render the animation, and then basically builds that as a web app and saves that. So Toby, one of the things you were talking about is like saving that as a video app, or as a like an MP4 video, which is one of the things that Remotion can do. But I actually had it take that part off, so that way instead of waiting for the video to render, you could play the animation on the screen without any further
Nice.
ado.
That's pretty cool. Okay.
And then
That's really
the
cool.
yeah, and like some of these things have different levels of. I don't know if you can actually hear it. I don't know if that's playing through my thing, but like
Yeah.
but the idea is like it starts to show the idea of like how many people you need, whatever, and it just starts working through these, basically the different sections, right, that the AI had already set up. It just turns those into scenes to explain back.
This
Okay, this is the so what of each of those bits.
this is really
Uh,
cool.
I introduced a little bit of tape. There's a video creator called Three Blue One Brown, and who does mathematical explainer videos. And so what I did was I do them in the style of that, because actually that's a skill too. So like not only can skills give you the technical knowledge of how to do something, but I could say, three blue, I can go find the three blue, one brown. Yeah, there it is. Right. And now this is not, in fact, this is even suggesting using a different piece of technology, right? Which is called Manim, which is a mathematical animation library for Python. But because it introduces ideas of taste, this is what the video is like. I can put those two things together: the taste of three blue, one brown, the technology of Remotion in the context of an MCP app. And then that's how those things, fit together. And it takes roughly 60 seconds for it to make a video. And then the video itself is usually about 60 seconds across, 5 or 6 scenes.
Wow.
It's very clever. I have one question, right? So, because
And the
it's not an
videos
MP.
are only, but but they explain things. Go ahead.
So, because it's not an MP4, and it's basically using well, it's React, right? Being rendered in a clever way. You could probably, I mean, I'm guessing, and then, well, this is my question. Can you basically update it as the LLM comes up with different walls of text? So you right now have this video right here, but then like information might change, or you might ask a different question, and then do you render a different video, or do you update this one? So I think it could be
Yeah.
a very one of the main kind of inconvenience of explaining things in a video might be that render time that you mentioned, right? Like, okay, I want to have this like quickly delivered for me to consume. So how people use the ChatGPT or any other LLM is they just like type in something, they expect a quick response, and they keep updating their own kind of understanding of the information, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Perfectly fair, right? So the answer is actually from a technical point of view that gets a little tricky, and the reason it gets tricky is sort of twofold. The first thing is, even though I've taken the shortcut of not creating the MP4 and it's actually just code, which in theory should be easier to update, it's actually compiled code that actually needs to be in here. Because the other challenge I have is that, and actually this is the reason why it works in ChatGPT and does not work in Claude, or at least didn't work in Claude as of 2 weeks ago, which is the last time I tested it. The way this thing works is actually it's sort of a neat additional technical thing. It really uses a generative UI pattern to it, where it's an iframe inside the iframe, right? So these widgets are iframes, right, which are basically little web browser windows that are sitting inside your a ChatGPT environment, right? It's completely isolated. That way they don't go messing around with your ChatGPT. There's like a special protocol for how they go talk back into ChatGPT that uses a post message, which is a web thing. But the but otherwise they stand on their own. Now, in order for this thing to work, it needed to be the other thing about the way that AI does the widget is it's the same code every time for doing the widget, right? And then it wants to load information dynamically after that. Okay, but the problem is the video is different every time. And the video, the way Remotion works, the video is a React app. So how do I load that in dynamically? And so the solution I came up with was, well, it's just a React app. So we'll load that inside the iframe, right? So as it becomes an iframe that just holds another iframe. By doing that, it allows the video to be whatever I want it to be, right? Which is nice and dynamic. Interestingly, because of the security things that go with iframes, ChatGPT says, "Oh yeah, I know how this works," and Claude's implementation of MCP apps is actually more incomplete than the way ChatGPT did it. Which I found to be surprising given like how much of this was sort of seemingly from Anthropic. But yeah, there was a hole there, and as a result, this thing won't work on a Claude.ai. It works on Claude Desktop and it works on the in ChatGPT, but doesn't work in Claude AI in the website, which I think is also one of these challenges that like people right now are dealing with when they're trying to make useful MCP apps. Is there are all these little technical peccadillos
Yeah.
that have more variance as you go from environment to environment. You two are both, heavily from the mobile development world, cross-platform mobile development world. I'm sure you sort of imagine the whole Android versus Apple, type issues that we're talking about in here. But the reason I bring all this stuff up, JC, is that I think your idea is an awesome one, and it was something I tried to do in the first round. And what I found was that the juice wasn't quite worth the squeeze because the way the thing was trying to compile. So instead, what I did was, okay, explain this to me in a video and then just have it make another video afterwards, right? It just becomes like another 60-second wait time. It keeps it from being quite as asynchronous, but it also moves it to the bottom of the flow, right? So now you have a video that's as of this point, another video that's as of this point. So I sort of thought, that seems to be doing enough for me right now, right? But I do think your idea of, wait, let's have this thing just sort of update as we get more intelligence is a really cool one. And I think it also kind of points to how a limitation of ChatGPT apps and of MCP apps is that they have their fixed position in the flow, right? When in fact, like for the reason you described, it'd be a lot more interesting for this thing to be a little bit of a co-pilot for me, right? Be following along so that, oh, wait, as I change this changes too, right? So it's reflecting what's the latest information I have as opposed to being fixed in position because like it's a tool, which is analogous to the way a tool call works, right? And that's sort of the way they slid in from a technology point of view. But I think from a user experience point of view, some very different things make sense. And that actually, the more I look at that, the more I think that there is a wide open window for ChatGPT, for Claude, for both of them just get blown out of the water by a better way of helping people do work. And I think we're starting to see some of that, like in the way that co-work works. We were seeing some attractiveness, right, in terms of changing up the way those things are thought about, which is to say that instead of thinking of it just in terms of a chat flow, right? Claude Cowork looks at it as you're creating these artifacts and updating these artifacts as you go. Kind of like the way code creation works, right? I keep on editing the code files, right?
Mm.
Those are the artifacts that like they continue to exist throughout the flow. They're changing as I move throughout the flow. And this starts to look more like that kind of mental model. Um, but it hasn't yet been brought back into a thing that like feeds directly into the UI. But I think there's a lot of opportunity for that kind of thing to be next. So like so I think part of the reason I did it this way had to do with the technical limitations what I had at the time and trying to maximize what I was delivering given the strictures. But I think what you're describing is totally right in terms of how we think about this to be creating more value in the future by removing those strictures. And that's one of the reasons why I was talking earlier about the whole rough and ready but powerful beating the refined, UX model that the actually I think this is one of the things that sort of defines the difference between like the low code world of 2024 and the AI development world of 2026 is where that trade-off is.
Mm.
Definitely.
Super interesting.
And I have another question, right? Have you been able to test this with people? How it can help people understand these walls of text better?
Yeah, we have a couple people in state change who are using it. That's one of the wonderful things about running a community is you can go find friendly people who can test this stuff out. And then turn it more into a broad thing. The big source of cost associated with it that keeps me from being just sort of let's throw open the doors is making the narration and the code right now are a couple of AI calls. And Toby has alluded before to, I think they're called prompts, right? Which is the ability of the MCP to go back and just use your chat's engine, right, to be able to
Sampling.
go make AI calls.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to that because I think that will also lead to an explosion of generative AI and generative UI that can get fed into here. Because right now, if I hand out the explainer MCP, to the world, it's my bill,
Yeah.
right? Unless I
I
create a
think
charge.
this is for me. This is one of the things I think is going to be an increasing problem. Everybody is paying multiple times for the same tokens, right? Every service that has AI built into their product says, "Hey, you can buy X number of tokens to do your AI thing," because
Mhm.
every bit of AI work has a variable cost, right? But then they're also the same people have got subscriptions or a number of subscriptions to OpenAI or Claude. Now, why am I having to pay twice for tokens? And if I buy them through the API, it's a tenth more. It's 10 times more expensive than having a subscription for the number of token cost. So the ability to use sampling to be able to use my subscription to do the AI work is incredibly valuable. And that's why I think for me, being able to MCP apps is something that really unlocks that. It's hard to do that through the CLI. But being able to use, because it's a network service to get these subscriptions, to be able to get you at least the hard stuff, or where you really want to use the clever models. If you're doing simple stuff, it doesn't matter too much. You can other things, but if you want to use, the max or minimize your expensive token cost, I think there's a huge opportunity for sampling to really allow people to unlock their subscription and apply it to whatever they need to do. But it really, for that to happen, it means that these network services you want to use have to provide a way like MCP apps to be able to make that work. There isn't a mechanism. Otherwise, people are having to pay twice for the tokens, which is super annoying. And I think as there's going to start to be more and more people saying, "I don't like this. Don't make me do this twice." So I think that's going to be a very interesting thing that's going to happen soon. And interestingly, the only people that support sampling at the moment, as far as I'm aware, is Goose and and Claude. I don't think OpenAI supports it yet. So that'll be interesting to see if that becomes, if it gives a really big push to have it open everywhere.
That makes sense. The place I'm seeing sampling as a model being used is in skills. Right. So in an
Right.
agentic AI world, the skills say, "Hey, here's the stuff you need to do. Hey, you, Mr. AI, go do it." Right.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah. Yeah.
you and to the extent that
Exactly.
the AI that's getting stuff It gets to do the cheap part. In fact, like in state change, we have a state change mentor that can go back and forth for users and like have the conversation and work with their mental models, whatever. But like when we're done, but that requires tokens to get spent. But when we're plugged into like Claude Code, we've got both skills and a CLI, and the skills say, "Hey AI, here's how you use this stuff," and the skills are just doing. I mean, so in the CLI, basically just does searching, right? Just pulls the
Yeah.
stuff out, and so
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
about how can we get the current AI to do more of the work for us, and also then Excalibur, which we looked at like a couple weeks ago. I don't know whether you remember this part, but like they have their two major tools. One is a README tool, and the other is okay, go make a drawing. And the README tool is really cool because it kind of it does it's not formal sampling, but what it does is give instructions back into the AI. Say, hey
Right.
AI,
That's
here's how to
clever.
use me. Now you can go give instructions, which by the time you're running the CLI, but by the time you're running the tool part, those instructions are all deterministic, which means there's no AI that's sitting behind it, which I
Yeah.
think is
Yeah. That's pretty clever.
of keeping costs down, and then focusing their attention on what they do well, which is the Excalibur diagram.
Yes.
Interesting. If I might say one more thing about the explainer video, going back there because I mean it really surprised me. um, I think it really helps. It can be a really good tool to help people um, well do something, perform one task that we've been discussing over and over in relation to our framework and how we are seeing ChatGPT apps and MCP apps behave, which is consume information, right? Like that's you're in our ICE framework. The inspect information is where we see most of the ChatGPT apps excel because that's where you can really leverage the UI and more complex ways of showing information to people. So I think this is just like taking it to the next level. It's UI in
Hmm.
a way, but it's in a way more human, understandable, and relatable format that you can consume. So, I mean, I can see many different uses for many different for a wide range of people of users, like from the developer side of things, the more technical user who works in Claude, that we
Hmm.
are saying, yeah, that has a different way of yeah, a different way of showing the UI in the chat, to a more consumer or less technical, more generic user
Hmm.
in any platform or in any surface, showing a video, a quick explainer video of like how this app works, or how my sales have been doing in the last few months. Like, could be anything. I can think
Yeah.
of so many ways that this is like next level of LLMs putting together information and displaying it to the user in the best way for that specific user, right? Because then this could also scale in a way that, yeah, the LLM knows you really well, so it can probably come up with really creative ways of showing you a specific way of displaying that information in a video that is only specific to you, and maybe because you like that better or you happen to understand that better.
Yep.
The same way the LLM today to Ray gives a different wall of text than it might give me, right? Well, I think it's really really cool. Yeah. I hope to see
Very
this
cool.
and be able to use this soon.
Yeah, man, I'll hook you up. Although you just saw the error message, so clearly I have something in development that has issues to it, which is always the way, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I hear what I think that the last point is a really good one for us to go out on, which is the idea of the big value here is in creating experiences that are all about you. And it's
Mm.
I think that this is simultaneously the great promise of AI and the great terror of software companies, because it means there's no scale, right? Because now it really needs to dial in and be really, really great for you, JC, great for you, Toby, great for me, and is the same. And what are the odds? The same tool can be really great for all three of us coming from very different, backgrounds and perspectives, let alone other people who have, even more diverse backgrounds and perspectives. And if the cost of software development goes way down, then the opportunity to create more micro software goes way up. So like, where's the scale?
Yeah.
Where's the depth? And people who can figure out both scale and depth are going to make crazy amounts of money. But people who can figure out one or the other, decent amounts of money. But I think there are plenty of people who will trade, who are still in the world of software from 2015, which is straight up scale play. And
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
That's 100%.
needs to be dialed into the way the person thinks, and for the very reasons you were just describing.
Good stuff, everybody. That was very good. Good session.
Absolute
Yeah, thanks,
pleasure
Ray.
you guys today. And we'll do this again real soon.